Welcome everybody to another episode of the Game Informer Show. That's the show where we inform you about games. I'm your host, Ben Reeves, joined today by a great group of dudes. Dan Tack.
It's great to be here, Ben. Thanks so much for having me on the show. Always a pleasure.
That's right. Marcus Stewart.
Thank you for dragging me out of my cave to be on the show with you, fine gentlemen.
Nice Felix the Cat shirt. Are you a actual fan?
Yes. What are you accusing me of being some sort of poser?
I don't think anybody under the age of 60 is an actual fan of Felix the Cat.
Well, maybe not classic Felix the Cat, but I watched the 90s. What was it? The show where he had the magic bag and stuff.
Are you thinking of Garfield?
No, Felix the Cat. He had a magic bag.
He
like
loves
Mary
lasagna.
Poppins. Yeah, exactly.
He hates Mondays.
They should really do a crossover between the two. Actually, like it'd be bigger than King Kong and Godzilla.
Yeah. I remember that character. Yeah.
What, Felix?
And he had that little normal cat that would always be near him too. Yeah.
Yeah. Always shipping him off to Abu Dhabi.
That's right. Well, I don't remember that one.
You don't remember that? That was like the whole gimmick. It's like sending Nermal off to Abu Dhabi. Which was Nermal a guy cat?
We are deliberately confusing him with Garfield.
Yeah, believe it. Yeah, I used to think that Nermal was a girl, but I remember reading the strips and they use male pronouns. So I was like, huh.
I think it's because the voice actress on the show was a girl. At least I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the eyelashes too that seem very feminine, but I think it just emphasizes how cute he is.
Yeah, for sure.
Felix the Cat, ladies and gentlemen.
Alex Van Aken, I haven't forgotten about you. How's it going?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to have you. This is the Game Informer Show, the show where we inform you about games. I'm your host, Ben Reeves. Welcome, everybody, to the Game Informer Show. Excuse me. Whoa. I got caught in a time loop there. That was weird.
Yeah,
sorry.
Glitching out?
Pulled myself out, but it's very appropriate today since we'll be talking about the newest game to grace the Game Informer cover, Deathloop. So I have a game about being caught in a time loop. So hold on to your hats because we're going to be talking about that later in this episode.
Yes, sir.
But first, not to be outdone, we always kick the show off with the playlist, which is games that we're digging lately. And I don't know, Marcus, you want to go first? What have you been playing?
Hello, Ben. So I have been playing a really cool game called Curse of the Dead Gods that released late February. And it wasn't until recently that I was able to kind of make time to really dig into it after kind of picking at it. And it is a kind of like isometric action RPG, similarly designed to like something like Hades, where you're going room to room, battling like waves of enemies and trying to reach the big boss at the end to, make out with the most loot so that you can buy some hot new upgrades and weapons to make subsequent runs easier. And I love making out with loot. You know me. I took the loot up to Make Out Creek, and
oh yeah, ooh,
let's just say
loot hanging out.
Some people they get lucky.
Got some RNG.
Oh yeah, I know what that means.
Red, green, and blue. What was that?
Yes, I don't think that's the same acronym, but yeah, so what's cool about this game is that so you're like the idea is like you're an explorer going through these different ruins and just trying to make out with loot. But every time you enter a new room, you get inflicted with like a curse. And like this little curse meter kind of builds up. And once it fills up all the way, you get hit with just a random status ailment. It could be something as like, oh, your health's declining slowly over time, or like I got one, or it's like, oh, there's mines in the ground, but you can't see them unless you're covered in darkness. And so the idea is trying to tackle these runs with just more and more, like the deck is getting stacked against you more and more as you're playing. The other twist with this game is that light is very important, where you have a torch that you're carrying around, and when you're in the light, when you're fighting enemies, you take less damage, but if you get hit while you're in the darkness, it hurts more. And so there's a strategy in like entering a room and like either trying to find torches and light them as quickly as possible, or you can use the torch to attack enemies, and you can even light them on fire to have them act as light sources if you want. But the moment you attack with your other weapons, it puts the torch away. So it becomes this kind of like strategic song and dance.
Cool.
Like, Yeah,
Are there additional enemies that come out when you're in the darkness, or is it just the same enemies? Just like you said, you take more damage.
it's the same enemies. Yeah,
Okay.
like some rooms will just be like the enemies that are there or what's there. Some will keep throwing them at you. It
I wasn't sure if
depends
it was like a Gears of War Krill situation or not, but
for sure.
sounds a
Yeah,
bit more. It sounds like you're already juggling enough to have to throw more things into the mix. So it sounds cool
yeah,
though.
yeah.
Is
It's
this
cool. Mhm.
the perfect, just because Hades came out officially 1.0 late last year and everybody fell in love with it, and probably now's the time where a lot of people are finally winding down their playthrough of Hades. Is this the perfect Hades hangover game? You're done with Hades and you want more of that kind of thing. Would you direct people to this?
I think so. They're similar. It's like this game isn't like quite as fast paced as Hades can be, but they definitely share a similar DNA. This game I think is harder, so like if you don't mind dealing with like a little notch in difficulty, then I think this game's like a totally good chaser for Hades. But at the same time, I think the difficulty is manageable. Like
Yeah.
even being saddled with like 5 curses at a time, I never once felt overwhelmed. Like it feels more like a fun challenge than like I don't know what to do here. Like you never feel crippled, basically.
Sure.
Uh,
It
Mhm.
kind of reminds me of this board game that I love called Gauntlet, where you essentially are starting this. You have this character, and at the start of the game, you have to, if everyone wants the warrior, instead of like bidding like gold or something on that character to get it, like it's a bid of, if you want this, you have to add a curse to the character, and it's like it passes around the room. And the more you want the character, the more curses they get, until somebody's like, "All right, this guy sucks. I'm gonna play him." It
yeah,
kind of reminds me of that a little bit.
That's a
yeah,
fun idea.
and like the number of curses you
Yeah.
get, it depends on how like you can expedite that process by like offering blood sacrifices for new abilities if you don't have enough gold to buy it. So it becomes a trade off of like I want this really powerful weapon now, but I don't have the
Yeah.
money, so I will speed up the infection, so to speak, just to get this weapon and hope that it kind of works out. There is a limit to the many curses you get, because I think if you get like 5, you'll just like die and your run ends. So you do have to kind of manage like, do I have enough left to get to the end of the run
Yeah.
with like, can I beat the curse basically?
I just added it to my Switch eShop wish list. It looks really cool.
It does
is
look really
cool.
cool. Dan, I think you had been playing it pre-release. What was
Yeah,
your
I
impression
played
of
it.
the
I
game?
played it for a preview a long time ago. A lot of the systems weren't in there. Had some very, very bare bones beginnings. It was basically, as I can definitely see the comparisons to Hades, but when I played it, it was kind of like action slay the spire,
Okay.
which is not
Yeah.
very uncommon in the indie roguelike space. That genre is just hot all over, right? So
Yeah.
I wasn't surprised to see it. I haven't played it since release though, so I don't
Yeah.
know.
That's actually a really good comparison. Action Slay the Spire. They did that. I doubt they had this in the early access period. I didn't play it, but like they have these cool like special events where like on top of the campaign runs, they have limited time runs, like daily or weekly ones that are like all have a specific stipulation. And those are really fun because they have just some really wacky challenges, and they also offer a really cool way to build up some currency in between just doing the same runs in the campaign.
Yeah.
So it almost reminds me of like in Mortal Kombat, like the unique challenge towers that they used to do, or I guess they
Yeah.
still do. It's a very similar concept to that. So I
Dead
think,
Cells had something similar too, like it might have even been daily. Like you log in and there's some weird, challenge run to complete. So I dig
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Man,
it's
Dan, maybe you can help me out. I was just looking at the art for Curse of the Dead Gods, and it reminds me a lot of Darkest Dungeon.
Mhm.
Do you think it's? I know
see
it's not
that.
the same developer, but like maybe it's the same artist they contracted out or something.
It's,
Does it
it's not.
really?
not.
Because it looks
Yeah.
reminiscent to me. Am I crazy?
It is reminiscent. A lot of places are trying to, make very stylistic art. All right. I don't think they were necessarily trying to, ride that style of Darkest Dungeon. But yeah, there's if you go on Steam, you're going to find more than just that game too. That also sort of is emulating that style of Darkest Dungeon, the very grim, dark,
Yeah.
dark fantasy. Very, Darkest Dungeon did a great thing. Incredible art. I love the team over there, and yeah, that a lot of companies have taken that style to call, I guess you could say. I don't want to like, don't accuse my words very carefully here. I'm definitely not saying that they're like, trying to steal that style. Okay, I'm not trying.
Oh,
to
I
say
wasn't
that,
accusing them at all.
Yeah.
It was so close, so similar to me anyway. I was like, maybe it's even the same guy. I don't know. But
Yeah,
if you
I am
love the
trying to
art,
steal.
That
I'm trying to
same
steal it from
guy-
my.
we're trying to steal art. Yeah,
No,
no,
I'm
we're-
trying to steal it for myself, for my personal style. Like I
Hey,
want
wait a
to
minute.
look like Darkest Dungeon. So
Is that the Mona Lisa behind you, Marcus? Did you steal that painting?
listen, it's more like the Mona Lisa. It's if you put an accent over it, it's a different thing.
Oh, completely different. Yeah, great artist steal. That's what I always say. And
Yeah,
you, Marcus, are a great artist. Artist. of
So
our time.
yeah, as far as I know, the Darkest Dungeon art team and their incredible artists and the art duders over there are working on Darkest Dungeon 2. So hopefully,
Oh,
we
which
see
I
something
can't
about
wait
that
for.
soon.
Yeah.
Me
Right.
too.
Do we know anything more about that other than the fact that it exists?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Hopefully, we learn more soon. That'd be great.
We know it's coming to EGS this year.
Sure.
In some kind of open form. So we're looking forward to pre-access or whatever, whatever you want to call it, whatever word you want to use.
Yeah.
We'll
Well,
be
if you
playing it
love-
this year.
If you love the art style of Darkest Dungeon and you love Slay the Spires and action games like Hades, maybe Curse of the Dead Gods is for you. It's a really cool game. I definitely plan on checking it out. And I know it's a little bit dated at this point, but we do have a new gameplay today video on the site from last year when you were playing the game.
It's
Tax.
mad dated. That was we actually had a pre-release exclusive on that, so we were ahead of the curve. Like
Oh,
we
that's
always
right.
are.
Game Informer,
Yeah.
baby.
Cool. Well, Curse of the Dead Gods sounds cool. Marcus, is
Mhm.
there anything else you've been playing?
I checked out Maquette, which I know you reviewed for the site.
Mm.
And had maybe a less than stellar experience with it because so I love puzzle games, and Maquette is something that's certainly right up my alley. Like I was actually looking forward to it for a while now, because I think the idea of it's really cool.
Yeah.
And so I fired it up because it's on PS Plus. I'm playing it on PS5 over the weekend, and I spent like a couple hours in that opening area and hit a wall faster than I thought that I would for something that like the first level of a puzzle game. I don't know, maybe it could be a combination of me or the game. I like to think I'm flawless in every aspect, so it's probably the game. But I feel like I was having a hard time figuring out where to go.
Sure.
Where you the idea is that you're in this big world and you're kind of like navigating it by like navigating a small model of the world you're in and moving objects around, and like dropping an object into one space makes it bigger, and like the
A
space that
little
you're
bit
occupying.
like Superliminal, that puzzle game. Is that
A
like
little bit.
fair
There's some
description?
elements of that for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
We talked
Yeah.
about Maquette last week. I reviewed it just as not to bury the lead. I gave it a 7.75. Liked the ideas a whole lot. Loved the art. Loved the little story it tells. And
Yeah.
ran into the same problems you're describing. Like just with
Yeah.
puzzles.
I basically like not save myself into a corner, but like hit a point of no return I don't think was intended, where like I went into the big world where like you're a tiny person, and just because I was kind of lost and I thought I was following the path that the game was put in front of me, but I think I sequence broken in a way, or I went into an area big, went down some stairs, couldn't get back up the stairs because I was too tiny to jump back over them, and then it turned out the area I was in had like nothing. So then I just had to and there's no kind of like reload checkpoint option. The only option is like restart game. So like in my mind, I'm like, that sounds like the nuclear option, but maybe it's just like restart checkpoint. It just horribly frayed. But no, it restarted the game from the beginning.
Oh my
and,
gosh.
and so like the hours of progress that I had just in that first level was gone. So I had to put it down because I was like, my enthusiasm was kind of wiped. I want to go back to it, because at least now like I can work my way back up to that point, because I know the solutions up to that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that it left a bad taste in my mouth at the time, where I just kind of like was
It's high
really
on my
upset.
playlist, but
Mm.
after hearing you both have issues with that, I might wait for a patch or to see if anybody else has those issues and if they get resolved, because I really want to play it, but I also don't want to run into similar issues.
Yeah. So
I mean, like Marcus said, it's on PlayStation Plus, I think, still now.
Yeah,
So
I
if you have
downloaded
that-
it yesterday.
Yeah,
so
if
it's
you have
definitely
that,
still there.
I recommend grabbing it quick and checking it out. It's a great game to check out for free.
Yeah.
7.75 is still a good game in my book. Like, there's a lot of things I liked about it.
Voice
Yeah.
acting seems really good in this game.
Yeah, they got like a big name. God, I forget her name, but
Bryce Dallas Howard is the girl,
yes.
and I can't remember the name.
I think it's her
her
husband.
real life husband. I
Yeah.
can't remember his name,
Oh.
but he's also, and I like his voice. He has such a like an interesting
Timbre.
Is it like an
sort of
ASMR quality voice? Like,
Dude, yeah, he just sounds like a clicking keyboard.
okay, just
Yeah,
set
which
to some
is-
rain.
Yep.
I can do that for you anytime you like. Tell me. I can. Perfect.
Yeah, so that's Maquette. You can read the review on the site if you want. Dan, what about you? You been playing anything good?
Hey, well, I certainly hope so. Yo, we got Loop Hero in the mix. Yeah, so you're talking about time loops like Deathloop. This game is also about looping through time. It is a roguelike deck building, roguelite, okay, deck builder where you do not control your character, but you control everything around the character. So think dungeon management. Think if you were the dungeon master, or you're the environment creator. You get to determine what you're fighting, the difficulty of the encounters, but you're trying to make your hero strong enough to be able to survive boss encounters eventually, right? So you can't give him just too easy encounters because then he won't be strong enough to fight the boss. You won't have a good enough loot or good enough XP traits, stuff like that. But if you go too hard on your hero, then he's going to die before he even gets to the boss. So you have to play that balancing act with like trees and villages, and you get villages give you quests, the trees give you attack power. Everything you put on the map on the board has some influence on your run, on your loop. So you have to make cool decisions there. But let's say you're not so great at making decisions. You'll still get bigger over time as you bring resources back to your camp. Very sort of like Rogue Legacy, if you remember that one. You're making pretty significant power boosts over the course of the game. Very important unlocks that will unlock new things you can put into the world. So you're basically making a world for your character to live in. A horrible world full of monsters and mayhem, but also loot and experience. And you go around the loop until you're ready to fight the boss. So you fight the boss, rinse and repeat, go to the next chapter. Next
And do
chapter
it
is
again.
more hard, but you can get more resources to advance your city.
I love what you're saying. I feel like I'm always talking about the art in a game because that's the thing that definitely draws me in. And the visuals for this game don't look great to me.
I was in the same boat, Ben, before I played this game. Play the damn game. It is amazing.
I will say, when we talked about this game on a new gameplay today, ages ago, eons ago in the Great Before Times, I had similar concerns about the art. Playing it though, the game is an aesthetic. Okay, when you combine it with the music and the old school CRT, it feels grim as you go through this awful place. And the music is absolutely stellar, by the way.
Yeah.
If you like me, I don't know if you can tell by my background, but I'm big into like synthwave, retrowave, and neon and stuff like that. That the music encapsulates that to a T. I think this is a soundtrack I would listen to voluntarily outside of the game, but it fits and syncs up with the visuals. Okay, which admittedly are very old school. That's okay. They're going for this vibe. Okay, and they hit the vibe. That I think is important. When you nail that vibe, you're setting out to achieve, and it does achieve that. When you're playing the game, it's a cohesive aesthetic from visuals to sound.
It's like when you go out to a nice restaurant, they've got just the right music, the right lighting going on, the dishes are on point. It's an experience, Ben.
What are restaurants?
Oh, I don't remember. Actually, that if you play Loop Hero, that was an inside joke. You don't remember? Okay, never mind. Like 5 people. Dan gets it.
So in Loop Hero, you're trying to get your memories back.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I won't
So-
spoil the plot though.
Let me ask, is this game, I played a little bit of it when it was in early access. I haven't played 1.0 yet, and I probably played it at bad times. I think I played it right after work, and I don't think I mentally was ready to kind of wrap my mind around it, so I bounced off it quicker than I thought I would. But I want to go back to it. But I'm still trying to figure out what it is exactly. I'm listening to you guys talk about it, and I've listened to other people talk about it, and I'm still I think I understand what this is. Is this something I keep thinking it's something you must build a boat where because you're moving, your character's moving on their own, right? And you're just kind of encountering things as they go? Or?
For an easy direct comparison, this game is not exactly like Slay the Spire or Monster Train, but it fits in that same genre basket very easily. This is a game where you control everything about the game, just not your character attacking. That's all automatic movement, automatic attacking, but you put all kinds of amazing things around that for your character to. You're the DM. You're not the character, even though you are the character, right? That's the protagonist. But you are creating the world. You're the world builder. It's more of a simulation in that respect than having direct contact of attack, spell, blah, 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 blah over your hero. You're still getting all the equipment. You're selecting all of their level up traits. Once you unlock that, they're going to level up. You want to get experience points, all that fun stuff. You're making tons of decisions. I really hate the way that this game has been cast. I mean, prior to release, which is, as an idler, which is, I play a lot of idlers.
Yeah.
This game is not an idler. If you try to play
I was
it
going to ask that.
be massacred. You're going to be annihilated in a heartbeat. You need to be constantly making decisions about your hero's skills, equipment, build, and all kinds of other things as you play through. It is a very active game, despite being hands-off in terms of combat. You're controlling every other aspect of the game. And
Is this game just on PC right now?
Just on PC right now, though, given that it's had success. I think we just heard it's like, what, 500,000 copies sold already?
Yeah.
I could see it moving to other platforms, including mobile, very easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love seeing new exciting indie games, especially now because it just feels like the year is starting off on a pretty slow foot.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
it doesn't look like it's ready to start running at any point anytime soon. So we'll see what happens. So it's nice to have some exciting indie games to play. And
and I'm not saying
sounds good.
everybody's got to play it, but like I said in the review, if you like strategy, you like RPGs, you like roguelikes, any of these things, if any of these things sound interesting to you, you should probably check this game out.
Are you reviewing this one, Dan?
It's already reviewed. Reviews on the site. Boom.
Boom. So yeah, go read it.
8.5, check it out. I think it's worth investigating. And then depending on, after you read my majestic prose, you can make the determination of whether the game syncs up for you.
Sure. Have you been playing anything else, Dan?
Oh, of course. Let me tell you something, Ben.
You're not a one game man?
I have been taking a trip down the halls of hallowed antiquity with my evenings. I've been playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2 because, those sweet characters are coming to Smash. That's why I had to do it. They're in Smash, right? So I was like, whoa.
Did that really work for you? You're like, oh, new Smash
No,
character.
that's not why I'm playing it at all. I'm playing it No, that has nothing to do with it. But as a JRPG, this has been a fascinating journey for me. I'm about 35 hours in right now, and I think the combat is. I've just now figured out how the combat works in this game. Okay,
Good grief.
I do like it a lot more than the first game at this point.
Really,
it's much more active now that I understand it. Okay, so let me talk about the combat. The combat is really cool, but I do not think the game does a great job at relaying to the player how combat works and how the systems work. From a visual or tutorial style perspective. I think they kind of leave it up to you. And since I'm an experiential learner, it took me a while banging around to kind of figure out, okay, I need to use earth, and then fire in a row of varying degrees of quality in order to create this break system on the thing. And then let's just loop that in with topples and launchers and all kinds of. There's a ton of systems in play in this combat, and they're really good. I actually really legitimately believe that they're good, but I think the game does a very poor job of conveying how these things work to the player, and you just kind of have to rumble around and figure them out. And if you don't figure them out, you die. So a lot of people might not like that. But it's been a cool journey to discover those systems.
I stopped by your stream, Dan, and the voiceover and the battle voices are something.
That's just JRPGs being JRPGs, and I agree.
It was excessive. I was like,
but there's some pretty annoying.
Are you playing it in English, I guess?
Okay, I am playing in English because as Alex spoiled the secret, I am playing it on stream. So I do have it in English because some people just listen to the stream. I know, so this is just what's going on. So I do keep it in there. But yes, it is the most anime game I think I've ever played, and I have played actual anime games. So it's like it is pretty out there in terms of where it goes. But yeah, at some point you just have to be like, yep. This isn't even my final form. Of course, it's not. Give me one better.
It's only 10% of my power.
Yeah, exactly. In those terms, it's really a piece of anime cheese. Whether or not you engage with it on that level is up to you. I know people didn't really like the gacha system they put in the game. Yeah, they put in a Genshin Impact gacha style.
Did they really do that?
System. Yeah, it's not monetized.
Was this a late edition?
No, this is an integral part of the game, where you're pulling blades, which are like your characters that you augment your main characters with elements, right? So you've got to get a good elemental suite so you can do these awesome chain attacks and combos on enemies. And to do that, you've kind of got to engage with this other system where you're pulling random characters out of blind bags, like a guy. It's gotcha, right? But obviously you're not
They
paying.
got you.
Yeah, they got me. I got to tell you, and don't tell anybody this, but I'm actually coming around to this game pretty hard now that we've gotten this far into it. Now that I actually understand what the hell I'm doing, it's helping a lot. Like when you actually successfully pull off one of these huge combos on an enemy and just unload like 1 billion damage into them in this very spectacular, very anime fashion, it feels good, and I like that.
That's exciting because I love the first game, and I didn't play the second one just because when it launched, it seemed the general reception was kind of lukewarm on it, and it was supposed to be its own thing. So I was like, oh, I don't have the excuse of like having the cast that I like. But I've heard over the years, especially from Joe who reviewed it, that like the updates that they've added have made it substantially better. So yeah, like hearing you talk about it now, it makes me want to kind of go back and give that a shot.
Yeah. So cast wise, I think the first game does beat it. I've had some serious issues with some of the cast and plot decisions in Xenoblade 2. But as far as gameplay goes, I think they make some really significant strides forward in terms of combat. By the end of that first game, I was falling asleep because it was such autopilot combat, the kind of stuff that I hate, that I rail on Final Fantasy 12 for whenever I'm allowed to, with rants and raves, rantings and ravings of a madman, right? But Xenoblade 2, again, once you get the combat system, which may take you a while, it certainly did for me, once you grasp it, and not because it's complicated, because they simply don't, I don't think, from a visual and gameplay perspective, they don't relay these concepts to you in an effective manner.
Okay, cool. So this means you're going to main Pyre and Meether in Smash now, right?
Yes.
You know everything about them from this game. So.
I like all those characters and all the characters in Xenoblade 2. Oh wait, I don't. But I don't even. There's a whole robotic maid subplot that is just absurd, and
Rosie?
I can't even. Okay.
Hey, Rosie from the Jetsons in this? I'm sold.
Nice, sold it to Marcus for sure. All right. Well, Dan, I'm actually glad you're here because I was kind of curious to get your take on something. Last week, I mentioned that I've been going back to StarCraft 2 because I love StarCraft, and it just feels like a good winter game, like to dive into an RTS every now and then. It's a fun genre that I don't feel like we get enough of recently. And it's been interesting to watch those campaigns. I feel like Wings of Liberty came out pretty strong, and each successive campaign that they released was a little bit less exciting because it just felt like they kind of hit the point of diminishing returns on how much they wanted to invest in those. But I started last week, playing Nova Covert Ops, which was the what would you call that? Like episodic.
Mm-hmm. They did a lot of, they experimented with all kinds of fun stuff, more like more traditional campaign content. Sorry.
Is that your campaign warning?
That is warning. It's like, story's here. We gotta go.
But I have been liking it. This Nova Covert Ops, it's fun. Like they do some weird things. Like one of the early levels, it's like a side-scrolling game where you still have the overlay of how you control the characters like you normally would in a StarCraft game, but you're on a bike racing through a futuristic highway trying to shoot down planes and stuff as they come and attack you. So they do some like neat stuff with that, but then there's plenty of levels that involve traditional RTS mechanics. So I'm about halfway through those levels. I think there's maybe 9 of them. I think there's released. But it's fun. I've been kind of digging it. So it's kind of fun to go back and, for whatever reason there was no real reason for me to go back to this other than I like StarCraft. It's not like they're announced anything new, but it's
remember RTS?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I think we'll see StarCraft again. It just probably won't be an RTS.
Yeah. Where does StarCraft rank on the list of like the only RTS I've ever played, which was the Battle of the Band section in Brutal Legend? They're like similar, right?
Oh my gosh, dude! If that's the only RTS you've played, you can
that's literally my only frame of reference for RTS.
Ben, people don't play RTS anymore. It's no longer like a genre, really. So for the younger generation, they've never had the opportunity. They've never had. Why would they? Right? They go right into MOBAs. League of Legends is their RTS. That's their starting point. They don't have to come from Age of Empires or StarCraft.
Right. Well, if you think they're going to make another StarCraft, what would it be? Would it be a MOBA at that point?
I don't think Blizzard is interested in engaging with that after Heroes of the Storm. They've already got their MOBA, and it sort of stands outside of the other two big names in the space. As to what they're examining for a StarCraft game, gosh, I can't even imagine. I don't know.
StarCraft Ghost is back, baby.
No, I think that they've had enough attempts. I think that they're done at fine.
Hey, I would totally love that, by the way, because I love games like Splinter Cell, but it just feels like they're interested in bigger fish, let's say.
I think if they, I think they'd love to make StarCraft Ghost if they can get it to work. I think they'd have issues getting it to work. That's my take on that.
Yeah, could StarCraft be a battle royale? It seems like knowing nothing about that series, you just drop 100.
I don't think they want to jump on the battle royale train lightly.
No.
I would say if any of the brand, the Overwatch brand maybe, or a completely new IP would be better for a battle royale. You don't just take your StarCraft stuff and throw it into a battle royale.
Come on,
say, hey,
you got
I don't know,
Thrall
Final
fighting
Fantasy's
some
doing it.
Terran.
Yes, well, Final Fantasy can do whatever they want, but I don't think it's the right fit for StarCraft. I could be wrong. Let's see what happens.
To answer your question, though, Marcus, I would say if you're at all RTS curious, I would say check out StarCraft Wings of Liberty. It's probably pretty cheap at this point. I think it's still their best campaign. I don't know if you have any other RTS games you would point people to.
I have, believe it or not, I have StarCraft Remastered that I think a few years ago, Blizzard gave out for free for some sort of StarCraft event. And like, I remember because I was like, oh, I'll take this and I'll finally play an RTS and see what the big deal is. And then I still have not done that. So I think it's buried in a folder somewhere on my computer.
My favorites are, I don't know if they're necessarily good for people who are curious. Mine are Warcraft 2 Tides of Darkness or Warcraft. I probably wouldn't play Warcraft 1.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then Age of Empires
Warcraft
2.
2 is really dated at this
I
point.
wouldn't
love that.
play Warcraft 2
Yeah, I
either.
think that's my rose-tinted glasses.
I loved that game. I played the hell out of it, but
Yeah.
forget about it.
What happened to Warcraft 3 Remastered? Was that just a total botch?
You can play Warcraft 3. It's
I
still
think
an
They would
excellent
like
game.
everybody to forget about it, but yeah, it came out a year ago.
As I have said about Reforged, as I reviewed it and everything, that is still a very important and incredible RTS, despite being a very disappointing remaster.
Okay.
That might be good for me, having no context of the original, that I can't be disappointed, basically.
Yeah, you don't have any. Yeah, I would say completely fine, and a very important RTS, an industry defining and a game changer, really, and an incredible game.
Sure.
Just because they didn't land the remaster, and they didn't, and I'm not gonna. There's no sugarcoating to that. My review is exactly where it needs to be on that one. But the game itself is a gem and something that you should experience.
Yeah,
All right.
I'll back that up. All right, we should probably close out the playlist soon, but Alex, do you have anything you want to add before we do that?
Just been playing some Loop Hero. We already talked about that. Big thing lately has been I'm on a Minecraft SMP server now with like 30 people. And that's been a whole experience. I've been a Minecraft fan for a long time, but my interest had waned in recent years, just because I felt like I had explored everything I wanted to in that game. But now we're playing with mods on Java, and it's a whole thing. We got the proximity chat set up, so you're only hearing people when you're near them, and we've got like restaurant mods, and we've got like an espresso bar that you can go to and like get stat buffs and stuff. You can upgrade your chests and back. It's a whole thing, but it's been really fun to it's sort of like a pseudo roleplay server at times, and so it's just been really great to kind of dive back into Minecraft. It's been so long for me that everything kind of feels fresh again and kind of new, and I feel like I lucked out. I feel like Minecraft is really, that experience is dependent on who you're playing with. Some people, make it a lot more fun than others, and I kind of lucked out. Like the people I'm playing with are really into kind of coming up with automated contraptions, like chicken farms that like tie into like a lava block that automatically cook chicken for you and spit it out, and they come up with like all of these weird contraptions, and it's making the experience a lot of fun. So
What's the coolest thing you've ever built in Minecraft? Most elaborate? You spend a lot of time on stuff?
Yeah, most elaborate. It's been a while, but I had this at one point. I had a server that I had this really elegant house that was built into the side of a cliffside that had like this natural waterfall. Because you can make a waterfall anywhere in Minecraft. You just get a bucket and drop it. But I had specifically found like one that was like naturally occurring in the world, and yeah, just kind of made this giant like tree fortress cliffside thing. It was cool. I'm not the guy who usually like, oh, I'm gonna recreate Sim City in Minecraft or like something like that. I just like customizing my house to be very, to have an aesthetic, and Minecraft accomplishes that for me. So.
Yeah. And that's where you live now. Like you made that in real life after that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. IKEA chic, I think, is what my my Minecraft house is what I've been describing it as. So a lot of wood and glass. So
You swear a lot as you're putting it together.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Wooden dowels everywhere.
It's like,
Yeah, you end up with like, well, I have these 3 extra blocks.
yeah. What am I supposed to do with this? How do I finish my spell book?
Yeah. Perfect. Cool. Well, Minecraft, hot new game. Check it
Oh
out.
yeah,
I've heard of it.
Yeah. You might want to check it out sometime.
That closes out our playlist section, brings us to the next segment of the show. It's a little segment we like to call Till Deathloop Us Part, where we're going to talk about the new cover on Game Informer's magazine's cover. Just another second word for that, unfortunately. We put Deathloop. This is the new game from Arkane Studios, the guys who did Dishonored 2. And hey, it looks cool. Alex, I know you were there with me. I wrote the cover, which is out now in digital, so you can read it.
Yeah.
Subscriber issues should be coming out soon to mailbox near you, hopefully next week. And Brian Shea was unfortunately not to be on this segment of the show, but he was there as well, and he's writing some cool features online that you should definitely check out. But Alex, what was your impression of the game?
Yeah, so going into this, Dishonored 2 is like one of my favorite games ever, and I love that game and think it's massively slept on. But yeah, so my expectations were high for like an Arkane game, and I think going into our cover story, I was very much hyped. I think now coming out of it, a lot of my questions have been answered about what exactly this game is, and I think it's become like my most anticipated game of the year now. So
Wow, that's awesome.
yeah, I'm really excited to play it. So for people who are unaware, Deathloop is they're calling it a murder puzzle, and so you're playing this protagonist named Colt, and he's stuck in a eternal time loop, 24-hour time loop, and at the end of every day it restarts, and he's trapped in there with a secret society that are kind of trying to kill him, and so the
It's
whole
basically
premise
Groundhog's Day. It's like
exactly, yeah.
You could be caught in.
Yeah, and so there are 8 targets you have to assassinate, and there's only one way to successfully do it. So you have to experiment. There are 4 different map locations, and they're pretty expansive, and then 4 different times of day that you can approach them at. So would you say like 16 permutations?
I think
then,
that's
right?
16 permutations of different
Yeah.
areas you can explore, and you can explore the map. It opens up to you like immediately, and you can explore those in any order you want.
Yeah.
And it looks cool. If you like Dishonored, if you love those power sets, a lot of those things transfer over here. So you have a mechanic that lets you basically teleport. There's a power that lets you like throw dudes around like telepathically. There's a power where you can link the fates of different characters together. So you have like 4 characters linked up, and then if you shoot one, they all die. Or if you like toss one over a bridge, they all go flying.
Pretty much the domino ability from Dishonored.
Yeah, they call it Nexus in this game, but it's basically the same thing. So yeah, if you love Dishonored and you love those mechanics, there's a lot of Dishonored DNA here, and yet it's its own thing. Like just visually, it looks very unique. The whole time loop mechanic of resetting every day, that's its own thing. The whole setup of exploring this island and trying to find out the perfect path to assassinate all 8 characters so you can break the time loop, that's its own thing. And then there's also Juliana in the game.
Yeah. She's she's an AI character. She's like Colt's rival, but if you want to play multiplayer and it's your choice, you can enable it or disable it. Random people or people from your friends list can invade your game and take control of Juliana and try to kill you.
So Juliana is the only other character in the game who knows that there's a time loop going on. Everybody else on the island just thinks it's the first day for them.
Yeah.
But Juliana and Colt both know, like, hey, this has been going on for a long time. This is messed up. And Juliana is trying to kill Colt. And so
because he's trying to break the loop.
Yeah, exactly. And so you can have the computer play as Juliana, or as you said, it's probably a little more interesting if you have a player invade your game. It's kind of a Dark Souls-ish element
Mhm.
you could compare it to, where people invade your game as this character and try to kill you. But talking to the team, like they were saying, actually it could be more interesting than that because they could try to kill you or they could try to help you. Like you never know what another human person is going to try to do in your
Yeah.
game.
It
So it
seems
could
really
be
cool. And like if you kill them in your game, right, Ben, like there is some sort of mechanic that Juliana can reappear even though you've killed her. Like we don't really know what it is, but there's something to do with that, right?
yeah. So
Okay.
she can show up multiple times.
Okay.
And Colt also has this neat trick. It's called a reprise system. It's basically like a life system. So if you die on a loop, it'll rewind time like 10 seconds or so, and you'll get another chance to try that encounter again where you
Mhm.
don't die. Colt has that. Juliana does not. So it's a little bit of a bonus for her, you could say. Because
Yeah.
everybody on the island is trying to kill Colt, but Juliana's working with them, so you don't have to worry about dying if you're Juliana.
Yeah.
Worry about dying from NPCs, I should say.
Yeah.
But
I-
yeah, Marcus and Tack, have you guys been following this at all? What was your interest like?
Yeah,
this
I've heard of
game?
it. Hey, the Game Informer cover looks amazing and some amazing words written. So those were great. All right. I don't know if this is gonna be my kind of thing, but
Sure.
we'll see. I might
Just 'cause
try
you're
it.
not a Dishonored fan?
I liked Dishonored. But I don't know. I'm not completely sold on it right now. But
Fair
we'll
enough.
see what happens.
Yeah.
I-
Fair enough.
I'm a big Arkane fan. Like I love those two Dishonored games, and I agree with you, Alex, that Dishonored 2 is really slept on this generation. At least it feels like to me, or at least I guess the previous generation. And I was, even though it was a different team in Arkane, I love Prey, 2017's Prey. I love their kind of systems driven gameplay, and like I like that they're doing something kind of completely different here. I'm more sold on this game now than I was. Like I was sold on it mainly because Arkane was making it and it was so different. But like the actual gameplay, I was like, I don't like. It seems cool. It was like, okay, sure, I'll try it. I think Juliana was the thing that worried me the most about like the idea of trying to like meticulously plan taking out these targets and then some like human player coming in and ruining everything and you have no control over it. Because I actually hate that in Dark Souls. Like I hate having some random person show up and ruin my good time. Because usually they're better than me and I rarely ever want to fight against them.
Sure.
But
Yeah. The nice thing about that is you can turn that off. So if you don't want players invading your game, you can turn it off and just have the computer control Juliana.
yeah, which is good to hear. Like I'm definitely going to play with it on because I want to experience it, I guess, the way it's probably meant to be played, to get that unpredictability. Because I think I read like Juliana, or the player that controls Juliana, can help you too if they
Yeah.
want.
Mhm.
Like she kill the targets too, or like at least give you an assist, or
If you're controlling Juliana, you can do whatever you want in that world, really.
okay. So like
You can
maybe
help them out. You could like, torment Colt for a while, like jump up and try to scare him, try to help out by you could become this weird like co-op thing too, where maybe you and your buddy hook up and like, let's go take down these targets together.
yeah. So I'm looking forward to like the emergent stories from that. Like it reminds me of like playing Journey when that came out and everyone having their own unique experiences with that. So like hearing that at least you can put some limits on Juliana's I guess presence is reassuring. But otherwise I love the tone of the game, like that James Bond song that they made for like that most recent trailer. It literally had me laughing. But
Yeah.
in a good way.
Wearing their inspirations on their sleeve, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's my new jam next to the Snake Eater song. So so yeah, I'm more excited for it now, and I really just want it to come out now at this point. Like
Me
just
too.
give it to me. And then I also want to invade all you guys' games and ruin your lives.
So the thing you hate, you want to do to us.
Yeah, that's usually how that works, right? Like I don't like it when you do it to me, but I think it's okay if I ruin it, right? For
Yeah,
you
it's
guys.
perfect.
You guys
That's good.
you guys are big boys. You can handle it.
Well, like
Sure.
Tack said, I think the cover image is really cool looking. You can go online, GameInformer.com, check that out. GameInformer.com/Deathloop. We'll have our full month's worth of content coming up. Just, I think yesterday we had the rapid fire video, Alex.
Yeah.
You did that one, and I think it turned out pretty well. You happy with that one?
Yeah, I was. I talked to Dinga, who is the game director on Deathloop, and we asked him 80 rapid fire questions about the game and other things, of course, in rapid fire nature. But yeah, go check that video out. And we've also got gameplay videos and other stuff coming out over the next coming weeks. So yeah, we got a lot of video coverage. So yeah, youtube.com/Game Informer.
And like I said, Brian's doing some cool stuff. He has like a
Absolutely.
powers thing set up. He has a profile on Colt and Juliana.
Yeah,
Some
kinda
insight
like the-
into what Arkane did while working on the new console,
Yeah, yep.
which we should say, Deathloop coming out PC, PlayStation 5
Yep.
very soon. People are saying like, hey, wait a minute. Bethesda, who owns Arkane, just got bought by Microsoft. So why isn't this an Xbox thing? And you gotta realize like that contract just happened. Like the acquisition just happened.
Yeah.
And the contracts for Deathloop were signed a long time ago. So right now it's set up as a PlayStation 5 console exclusive, but I'm pretty sure that's timed. And they haven't said officially, so don't take this as gospel.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
my intuition says that it's probably coming to Xbox somewhere down the road.
But for now, PS5, PC.
For now, I'm not going to take that as gospel, but
Please don't.
I'm not.
I never promised to be a prophet.
Fair.
Well, yeah, that wraps up our segment on Deathloop. You guys want to take a break? We'll come back for some emails.
Yeah, sounds
I
good.
think
Okay.
Marcus and Tack, actually, you have to go, I believe, but I'm going to find some extra special guests. for
Yeah,
the
this
email
cat
segment.
this cat has to go back in the bag.
That's right.
Yeah.
Put that
Felix
cat
the
back.
cat. He's back again. I didn't know. I didn't know.
Oh,
till
All
today.
lasagna.
Bringing them back, everybody.
Oh, Mondays. All right, we'll be right back. And welcome back, everybody. We're back to do some community emails. Brian and Alex are still here. You guys ready to do this?
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Great. We also have special guest joining us, Jeff Cork.
Hey, how's it going, buddy?
Pretty good. Also, a little sad because this could be the last time I'm on a podcast with you. You announced earlier this week. What did you announce?
I announced that after 14 years, I'm moving on from Game Informer.
We're kicking you out the door. And we're like, hey, good luck.
Enough. We can't afford you anymore. Yeah. And I said, we'll see. And then you showed me the door. So I guess I saw. There you go.
Now we can afford it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we sad. You'll be announcing the following Monday where you're headed, so you can't
Exactly.
talk too much about it.
Right.
Can you say what industry you'll be in or anything?
Yes, I am, as they say, crossing over. Going to be doing some PR,
Mm.
but not for like a specific publisher or anything like that. So I'm very excited. It was just one of those things. Like I think I'd been at GI for a pretty long time, and I love the people here, and I love writing and meeting people and seeing new stuff and traveling around and all that kind of thing. But at the same time, I realized like, maybe I should make room for someone new to try that and see what that's all about. So I did.
Yeah. Well, you're making a lot of room because there's a lot of big shoes to fill. I wasn't trying to make a fat joke.
Yeah, it's like, I think the fact that you're
swear.
saying I wasn't trying to make a fat joke in and of itself is
Insinuates.
interesting. Very.
I'm just saying you got big shoes to fill. I think you were one
Ah.
of the really interesting voices here at the company, and I always appreciated your humor. Obviously, also I thought you were a good writer, and you were really good at reviews, I think, and your features were really good as well. So
Well, thank
we
you.
will miss you. Yeah, but I look forward to all the press releases I'm going to get from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to
I'm sure
only
those
send
will
them
be
to
great.
you.
Routed straight to
Please,
Chuck.
yeah. He's PR person of one.
Yeah,
That's what the
exactly.
industry needs.
Yeah,
Great. Well, Cork,
yeah.
are there any like favorite memories from the last 14 years that
Good
just
grief.
things from GI in general that you're like, oh man, that was so fun?
That's the thing is like I think that question is so open ended. Like there were so many great times over the years. You know what I mean? Like it just kind of comes down to like, what do you want to talk about? I got like so many, like some great, some not so great. Like I remember like Gamescom 2019 when I was out there in Germany with Brian Shea and our luggage was lost, so that was really exciting. So we had to scramble and get new clothes and all that business. Like
we
the
hit
day
the
before.
town and like was it what's the one show where they just hit the mall and like they go on a shopping spree? That was us. Like it was like
Yeah, it was really
Mary
great.
Kate and Ashley.
Yeah.
It's funny because I
Mary Kate
remember
and Ashley lost in Cologne.
Yeah.
I remember Gamescom 2018, just the year previous. I was there
Yes.
with you, Cork, and the same exact thing happened to Surreal, who we
Yes.
were with, and he had no clothes for that trip. I was
Yeah.
like,
And we looked at him and we were like, "You idiot!
how
Just
could this ever have
who
happened to you?"
cares? Solve it." And then suddenly I realized that sucks. That's not good.
It's no walk in the park. We'll say
It's
that.
no good. No, especially because you're buying European clothes, which are different from the clothes that I'm accustomed to.
These sizes are all different. Come on.
Yeah. What 4? What is that even? What?
Any particular like visits to studios that you remember that you love? Like, what was the coolest studio you think you visited?
Coolest studio that I think I visited. I always had a really good time like with like Traveler's Tales and TT Games, those studios. I always enjoyed those trips, were super fun. Rocksteady, I was on the trips for Arkham City and Arkham Knight. Both of those were good. Here's a quick story for you about Arkham Knight. I was the day before the flight to London. I went to check in online and enter my passport, and it said, your passport has expired. And this was on a Sunday for a Monday flight. So Monday before I had to like get an expedited passport and get a delayed flight, and was able to meet Hansen and Brian Vore, who was writing the cover story at the time. This mad dash and these transfers and everything, it was a nightmare. I was so stressed out. And the taxi dropped me off 10 minutes before we were leaving to go to the studio. So like, it was just,
Oh my gosh.
it was awful. So I had enough time to like grab my bag, change my clothes in the bathroom, and then like run into the lobby and meet those guys.
And you're
I'm
super
most
jet lagged.
impressed that they were able to turn the passport renewal around that fast.
You
Like,
could get
that's
them in
crazy.
person. Yeah.
Oh,
In some places. It was awful. So you can like a very panicked look on my face for my passport if you know about it. Yeah, absolute nightmare. So you should probably check your passport expiration date. Little pro tip for you travelers out there.
and don't they not let you use it if it's like within 6 months of the expiration? Like it's a completely like, oh, why don't you just put the expiration on that day instead?
Yeah. Who can say? Nobody knows how passports work, Brian. They don't even make the expiration date very big, in my opinion.
Passport fears. Yeah, I had a similar story, which is not really that interesting. I'm not going to tell it. I remember.
Is this a story when you didn't bring your wallet to the cover story? And we had to buy everything for you, or got to buy everything for you?
A weird scenario where for some reason I just didn't have my wallet or keys. I think my wife dropped me off at the airport, but I did have my passport, and it was an international flight. So I was able to fly out there without issue, but obviously I had no money the whole trip. And you didn't seem too happy about that. I remember.
That doesn't sound like how I would react to something like that.
The story I remembered was this is a different trip, but we went to Ninja Theory out in Europe.
Yeah.
And we're super jet lagged. And you get there at 11 a.m. and you're like, we can't go to sleep yet. So we got to stay up all day. And we decided hey, wouldn't it be a good idea to go see a movie? So we went and watched Logan, which was just out. It was just not the optimal setting for Logan. Yep. And just the whole time we're our eyes are rolling back. And it was like a fancy new theater with cush seats that leaned all the way back. I could feel myself falling asleep during the trailers. And just the whole movie we're pinching ourselves and trying to keep each other awake.
You immediately, I looked over and it was just like you were in a bed. You moved it back all the way and we're just instantly asleep. It's like,
it was so comfortable.
Yeah.
I also remember that being the longest movie in the world.
It really did seem like it.
It just felt like I remember watching it 2 years later. I'm like, oh, this isn't as long as I remember.
Yeah.
You immediately put yourselves in the worst possible position if you're trying to stay awake. You walk outside, you go to a mall, you do something, anything where you're moving, not sitting in a comfortable chair in the dark.
Yeah, because it's also that situation too. If you get to a place too early, you can't go to your hotel room, right? Because you can't check in, so it's just this no man's land where it's just like, I think they were nice enough they let us leave our bags at the check-in desk or whatever, but then it's just like, well, now what? I'm not gonna stare at the desk for 4 hours or whatever. So yeah,
Exactly. Well, speaking of video games, are
Yes,
there
sir.
any like video game features or stories from the past that you recommend people checking out? You're like, hey, I love this. This is one of my favorite works. You should go read it.
Trying to think. Gosh, it's one of those like you put out a lot of stuff. It's hard to keep track of it all. I've always enjoyed writing the cover stories. Those were always pretty good. So I think the last one I wrote was the Hitman 3 one, which I enjoyed. I like the Grounded cover story too, because I think that was the first one that we did remotely also. So it was like a new kind of territory for us.
Back when it was novel and kind of fun.
Exactly. So there's kind of some stuff about the transition from working from home with like the team at Obsidian and everything. And I think at that time we were like, oh, this will be a fun little novelty to have this in there. Now it's like you could do every cover story about that. But at the time it was very cute.
You were like, wow, can't wait till we can travel again next month.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Well, Cork, do you want to do some emails?
I would love to do some emails.
Do you remember how this works?
I think people can send you questions, games. We love games. Interesting things, corrections, anything that makes the show better, as someone used to say. We'd love to get it. Podcast at GameInformer.com. Is that right?
Podcast at GameInformer.com. That's correct. Yeah.
Tell us about your dreams.
Dreams. I'm always begging for dreams. I don't think we get a lot of corrections, though. I don't know why. You tell me what that means. You tell me.
People can't type out their hate with like clenched fists. That's what it is. They hear like you idiots, bang, bang, bang.
Well, podcast GameInformer.com. Send us your emails. This first one, an Attack Corgi writes in. He says, keeps it simple and short. What's a game mechanic that everyone relentlessly hates, but you continue to defend?
I understand why people don't like it, but I think breakable weapons are totally fine.
That was going to be mine. Breakable weapons and Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild, I think they're totally fine and encourages you to try new stuff. Same thing with like Dead Rising. It's like there's so many different options out there. It would be one thing if it's just like you found the sword breaks after 10 hits, good luck, and then you're just like punching the rest of the time. But like as long as you give people plentiful options and alternatives and like it rewards experimentation, I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah, and like Breath of the Wild, it gives you so many weapons, just a steady stream of weapons. There's never been more weapons in a world than in Breath of the Wild.
Exactly.
Also, it's kind of core to like being an incentive, like for you to actually explore that world. It's like, oh, I need to find more weapons. Like I'm gonna explore, and that's part of the love that I have for that game. So
yeah.
Someone once compared it to guns in Halo, where the guns don't break, but they do run out of ammo. And so when you run out of ammo, you're like, well, the gun is useless to me now. So I'm gonna have to find something else.
Was that Kyle Hilliard?
It might have been Kyle. He had one good idea, right? So that might have been like that helped reframe it in my mind. And I agree with you. It didn't really bother me too much in Zelda because I think they designed the game around that. There's some games where it doesn't work as well. I think of The Witcher, where the weapon would break and then it just wouldn't be as effective, and you would have to go repair it. And that feels like busy work to me. I don't want to have to deal with that.
So mine isn't necessarily, it's not really a game mechanic as much as it's a thing that people will often cite as a bad thing. And that is linearity in games.
You stole mine.
So like, I don't know. I think I've been playing Final Fantasy X a lot. And, this is probably my 7th playthrough of that game. And people give Final Fantasy 13 a lot of crap for being linear, like so linear in the beginning, and then it finally opens up. Final Fantasy X is very much the same way, but it doesn't get brought up as much. And I think that, there's definitely other things I like more about 10 than 13. But I think that it helps the story really get revved up and like going. And then it opens up and it's like, all right, well, I have this incentive to keep going and enjoy the story, or I can, go explore in this giant open area that I now have access to for the first time in this game's history, or this game's story. So it works really well in Final Fantasy X, but also like having a level or an area that is like crafted in a way that like pushes you forward. Like I think of like a Mario game. Like I love like Odyssey and I love 64, where it's just like these big open playgrounds you can go and run around in. But I'm playing Mario 3D World right now, and everything except for the Bowser's Fury stuff is pretty much just a linear point A to point B thing. And it feels so great to have like these handcrafted playgrounds that are meant that they know how you're going to approach them. You're not going to approach them from the backside, and then you have to like run around and do some weird like twisting thing like, oh yeah, I approached it the right way. It's like, no, you're going to approach it the ways they expect, and they can account for that and create a better experience.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It feels like the industry fell in love with open world game design like 15 years ago or something, and just kind of went too far sometimes, because I think there's some open world games that are great, by the way, but there's some open world games where it's just a bunch of single player missions and you have to spend like 5 or 6 minutes walking to the start of each one, and I'm like, what is the point of that? Like, I would rather just have made a single player campaign if your open world's not that interesting. So I agree with you. Linear gets a bad rap. People use it like a bad word, and I don't think it is. Or it doesn't have to be. Tommy from the internet writes in, he says, I have never been able to get into roguelikes until I suddenly found myself in love with Hades this year. Are there any genres that you have a complete blind spot for, and do you have any games that you would want to play in spite of that blind spot?
I think for me, it's a big genre actually, but I just, for whatever reason, I think it's like the hour counts always scare me off, but like, more traditional JRPGs kind of, yeah, they scare me off. But then I go and sink like 200 hours into Apex Legends, and I'm like, I could have just played the damn game. But one of the games that I'm planning to play it this year actually. I've never played Persona 5, and so that is going to be a big one that I plan to play and beat at some point this year. So,
and there are shorter JRPGs. Like Persona 5 is not
For
a
sure.
shorter JRPG, but like
Yeah.
I just mentioned Final Fantasy X. I think my playthroughs typically last somewhere between like 50 and 80 hours, depending on like how hard I go for them. Like if I'm going for all like the ultimate weapons and everything like that. But like I think there are some like quicker JRPGs you can check out if you're
For sure.
if you're looking to like dip your toe in.
And there's certain, I can't recall any off the top of my head. I have played some on Switch, or even like back to old Game Boy games. I used to love like Final Fantasy Tactics. That's one of my favorite games. The fact that I could take it on the go with me and kind of continue to sink that time into it. Persona 4 on the Vita, but other than those kind of exceptions, I feel like it's one of my blind spots.
Well, if you love Persona 4, I have a feeling you're going to love Persona 5.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
Persona
stoked.
5 was actually my introduction to the series. Like Joe was raving about it, and I was like, fine, I'll try it. I've always wanted to get into the series. 4 didn't grab me, so I'm going to try 5, and I fell in love with that. And then I went back and played 4 Golden. I bought a PlayStation TV so I could play it up on the screen instead of on the Vita.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And now, of course, you can go on Steam and buy Persona 4 Golden. But at the time, it was a PlayStation TV for me, and I think I still like 5 more though.
Well, that's good to know. I'm excited to play it.
Yeah. So my answer, I have 2. One would be MOBAs, and the other one would be MMOs. And it's kind of for the similar reasons that Alex stated about JRPGs, where it's just like, I don't know if I have the time to have another like big game that I go back to every day or every week or something like that. Like I already have Overwatch that I've fallen off hard with Overwatch. Like I used to play every single night when I came home from work, but now it's like whenever they have an event, I'll fire it up and get like the boxes that they like the arcade boxes every week, and then kind of turn it off until the next week's event. But yeah, I can't wrap my head around so many of the systems. Like as you may have pulled from my answer so far, I'm a big Final Fantasy fan, and I really want to check out Final Fantasy 14 because everybody keeps raving about the new expansions. They rave about the story and everything, and it's like, as every time I look into like YouTube videos of like, let me just see how the gameplay looks, it's just like menu and menu and menu and menu and menu, and it's like there looks like this is just a nightmare for me to get into. Like I can't wrap my head around it. I've like talked to people about like the best ways to get into it, and it's just like, and I even asked like people on Twitter, like I'm not a big MMO fan, but I want to play Final Fantasy 14. Should I try it? And they're like, it is the MMO player's MMO, so go in knowing that. I'm like, well, never mind.
It's funny you say that because for me, MMOs are like one of my favorite genres. So I don't know where the disconnect is for me between those and JRPGs. Like my favorite game is WoW. Like that, talk about such a massive time sink full of quests and a lot of menus and management of your character. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, you stole my answer again, Brian. I was going to say MMOs, which I have tried to get into before. I've tried WoW. I tried Knights of the Old Republic, or just the Old Republic, I guess. And I like the idea of playing those things, but they're just such a time commitment. It feels like a lifestyle choice. Like I'm going to have to commit myself to this thing for a long period of time. And yeah, I don't know. It's you're shutting yourself off to other games to play, but nothing against people who play MMOs. More power to you. I just wish I wish there was one that was like a trimmer MMO, right? It feels like MMOs have to be this big sprawling thing because people want to continue to play them all the time. And I kind of wish there was a smaller version of that I could do in shorter bite-sized chunks.
Do you like the multiplayer component, or do you like to solo primarily, Reeves?
I generally do like to solo.
You should play Kingdoms of Amalur, the re-release of that. That's like a single player MMO, basically.
But it's not an MMO.
Yeah, but if you want the solo experience, though,
feels
just
like
pretend,
an MMO.
just pretend that nobody wants to play with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's how I feel about stuff like Skyrim.
Mhm.
It feels like one of those like just big epics that, hey, I'm the hero. I don't need other heroes running around in this world.
Yeah.
See, that's the other one that I feel like I should be able to latch onto because I like Skyrim a lot. So I feel like Elder Scrolls Online would be another one that would probably be pretty approachable for me. As a fan.
Honestly, that might be the best one. It's the most akin to like a traditional, like action game that you can play, and you can just solo the story if you want to.
I have nothing against like the MMO genre. It just is, there's yet to be a game in that space that has grabbed me like there has been in like the other genres like JRPGs or shooters or sports games or anything like that. MOBAs, on the other hand, I have tried a few MOBAs and I just they bounce right off me. It just does nothing whatsoever for me.
Yeah.
Jeff, what's your answer?
It would be MOBAs primarily. Yeah, I think like with MMOs, I could imagine myself getting into them, but I just honestly, like to Reeves' point, I don't have the time really, and I think I'd like to play solo primarily, and I know that's not how you excel in a lot of MMOs, and I get a lot of anxiety around people depending on me and letting them down. So like if it's a situation where it's like, hey, we're gonna do this big raid, we need you because you're a healer, and then I'm like, yeah, I will never play with you because I just won't do it, So
yeah. Great options there.
And you know what I say? I say everything against MMOs. You guys are so afraid of upsetting the MMO community.
I have one more. Speaking of communities we're afraid of upsetting, I don't like Dark Souls games.
Yeah. But
right.
Bloodborne.
Have you tried?
Bloodborne is good. I do like Bloodborne. The rest of them, though, I can toss them in the trash.
Oh.
I'm kind of with you. Well, I don't know if I'd go so far as toss them in the trash, but I'm not going to offend anybody unless you love Kingdom Hearts, then no. Throw it in the garbage. But no, what I was going to say is that people often say like, oh, well, you hate these Dark Souls games until you play one that you love. And I didn't really love them, and I played Bloodborne and I liked Bloodborne, but that didn't convert me to loving the rest of them for some reason.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the deal was.
And I was even hoping like Sekiro with like having a different approach to like that kind of formula would be more up my alley, but no, I kind of got to like the first major encounter and I was like, yeah, this is not really doing it. I bounced my head up against that wall for a few hours and just didn't like it.
Oh, well, maybe next time. We'll see. All right. Next email, Mike from Pahrump, Nevada. Hey, GI crew. Do you guys have any favorite pretty good games? Like ones that aren't necessarily great or really bad? For example, I love Star Wars The Force Unleashed and Dragon Age 2. So those are his examples of games that he thinks are, okay and fine.
I like Force Unleashed a lot. I the first one in particular. The second one I wasn't a huge fan of, but I really liked that first one. Somebody else go. I'm thinking.
I'm having trouble because I only play good games, so
Sure. Well, I was thinking.
My taste is exquisite.
Remember that Mad Max game from a few years ago?
Oh yeah,
that was all right. That was I'll go to bat for that one. Like a good, solid open world game that's kind of fun to explore. Also, I thought of Dead Island, of another one that's like. I don't think it was a perfect game or even a great game, but like it was fun enough for what I wanted at the time. Big open world zombie style action game.
There was
I'm
a
thinking-
PC game that came out last year called Mordhau. And it was like, it's like if people know like the Chivalry series, like this medieval combat game, it's like in line with that. And it's like not anything groundbreaking, but it's like pretty solid. I'd say probably Mordhau. That's the most recent.
I think the first Crackdown, I feel that way about it.
Hmm.
Like, I think there may be some like rose-colored glasses, people looking back on that first one, but like the
Yeah.
first one definitely had some problems with it. And it was kind of wonky in some weird ways, but like it was a good game. I had a good time with it. Yeah.
So I have a
I would
few.
even say that with the third one. Like the third one kind of worked
Yeah.
for me. I definitely wasn't great, but
Yeah.
for
the
having
third one
nothing
is
else
totally
to do
fine.
on a Saturday,
Yeah.
I'd play that game.
So I like the Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare games, and then
Oh,
also
yeah.
the
Me
extension,
too.
the Battle for Neighborville game that came out, I guess a couple years ago now, and I think it's hitting Switch this month. Those were really fun. They're just fun, kind of like hero shooters. I gave this game not a low score by any means, but when it came out, Splatoon was a aggressively okay game, and obviously like post-launch updates, they did a great job supporting that, but the core mechanics of that game, even though the content for both games at launch was pretty lacking, it definitely, they're great games now, but at launch they were pretty okay games, and now but like the core gameplay is super fun.
Yeah.
And I had one more, but now I forget.
It's funny
I don't
you
wanna-
brought up Mad Max. This is like a callback to last episode, Reeves, but about games that you fell off of and then went back to. I did that with Mad Max, and I was like, all right, let's get into Mad Max. I was like just with Alien Isolation, but even more so, I was one mission away from seeing the end of it. So like I was like, here we go, let's go. And it was like 20 minutes, and I like the credits are rolling.
That's
I was
amazing.
like, wait, what? Okay.
It's kind of nice when that happens because you're like, oh, I feel accomplished. Like I just finished a game, but then you're in
Yeah.
the same spot you just were. It was like, well, now what game am I going to play?
Exactly.
And now I
Actually-
don't even have that one idea I had.
I don't know if this would qualify for this category, because I think a lot of people really like this game, but I think Lost Odyssey is probably fits in this bucket, where it was the spiritual successor once I finished Final Fantasy X and bounced off Final Fantasy 12 at the time. It was the spiritual successor to that game that I really wanted, and it was on Xbox 360, so it was doing things visually that the PS2 couldn't do.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Lost Odyssey, and I've actually been thinking about replaying that after I finish this playthrough of Final Fantasy X.
Yeah,
You saying
like-
Lost Odyssey reminded me of Lost Planet, which I feel like
Oh.
falls into this category. It's,
Mhm.
pretty solid game, does some cool stuff. It has, a good amount of issues, but, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's an okay game. Cool. All right. Next email. JK, aka Captain Spandex from the internet, writes in, hey GI, after reading Reiner's recent Animal Crossing article, it got me thinking, how do you think Animal Crossing New Horizon will be remembered in years? It came at the perfect time and helped me alleviate some of the pandemic stresses. So it could be looked back upon fondly, or it could be it could elicit a negative emotional association associated with the pandemic, a sort of PTSD trigger, if you will, just dealing with the stresses of the pandemic and the people. So anyway, Animal Crossing gave us a warm escape at the right time, but how do you think people will look back on it in a couple of years?
I think that it's going to be kind of like that Mr. Rogers quote, the look for the helpers kind of thing. Like, have you heard that quote?
What's the quote?
Hold on, let me bring up it so I don't completely bastardize his quote. So
Is the quote just hello neighbor?
says, when I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. And not like, it's not a one-to-one comparison here, but like, I think that like Animal Crossing was a source of comfort for a lot of people in a really scary and uncertain time. And I think that that's how we'll remember it. I think that it's going to be ultimately tied to the pandemic, no matter how you slice it. But I think it's in the way that, it's kind of the warm blanket of normalcy that we needed in a time that just was anything but normal.
For sure. Yeah, I don't get the idea that it's going to be negatively associated just by association. I think people will always remember it fondly, but in the same token, like people will always think of like, oh yeah, that's that game that came out right when we went into lockdown. It's always going to have that association, but I don't think it'll be a negative one for people.
No, I think in some ways, I think that kind of sells the game short too. Unfortunately, you know, I think people are going to constantly connect those dots whenever it's referred to in the future, just because it was so important and like there were so many celebrities tweeting about it and like sharing videos and all that kind of stuff with it. But I think it's a great game that I was enthusiastic about on its own right, even like without the pandemic or with the pandemic. It's just a really like fun experience. So,
and you're one of the few people in the world probably who got to play it outside of the pandemic because you were playing it, you know, for review in the office when we were all hanging out.
Yeah, exactly. Back before I realized that my fellow man was my mortal enemy, just by the nature of existing. Yikes.
All right, next email, Mark from Montreal. What character do you believe to be the best at platforming? Feel free to include characters from any IP or genre.
Peach.
Best
So she can do that little float thing.
That's a good one. I always like
good too in Mario 3D World.
Oh, sure. I always like the triple jump. Like the double jumps so played out now that you have to have multiple jumps. So any game that does that, I'm trying to think.
Celeste.
I know Ori did that. Celeste. Explosion Man, I believe.
I know I just brought it up, but this made me think about like the characters in Crackdown are very good at platforming.
Yeah.
Well, if we're gonna
anything with like really good air control, like once you're in the air, you have a lot of mobility. That's really key.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, Celeste is my favorite platformer in recent memory. Maybe Super Meat Boy. I mean,
yeah, I was just thinking about that. He doesn't have a double jump, does he?
No, I don't.
But
think so.
at the same time, like that, it's tough because you got to associate like the character. Do we separate him from the game? Because the design of those levels were obviously like top tier. But if you stick him into other games, like he's not going to navigate them as well.
Well, didn't they have other characters from other indie games that you could play as? So that the inverse of that happened. So
right, and some of them had powers that I thought were better than Meat Boy.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking strictly the game, I think that my favorite platformer of all time will always be Super Mario World.
But I mean, Mario, you just want to talk about. I love Mario games too, and platforming is great. Feels great in those games. As a platformer character, is he like the best there is? He doesn't even have a double jump.
He's pretty adaptable though, with all those power ups.
At the end of the day,
you give him
though,
every
he's
power
just
up
a
he has,
plumber,
you give him the hat, you give him the flood device, you give him the cat suit. He just has them all in one. That's what they're going to do next.
You're over encumbered and cannot sprint message because he has so many things in his inventory.
Is Mario Batman, really, if you think about it?
Wow.
Tragic past. Brother.
Just
very wealthy.
No
dark and brooding. Yeah, check.
Mustache.
Yeah.
Where does he
He'll
get those
people
cool toys?
Within an inch of their life, but he won't cross that line.
Exactly. He will stomp them flat, and then they fall off the screen to recuperate fully.
His mother's name is Martha, I think.
Martha Mario.
Yeah.
Who really is the man behind that mask?
And he's constantly fighting clowns.
Do you guys want to crown a number one?
Yes.
Who would it be? Peach.
Oh.
Peach is hard to turn, I think. Right? She can float, but she doesn't have a double jump. I'm going to go with a triple jump character. Celeste, maybe?
I was going to say Celeste.
Celeste does feel really good to control. That is undeniable. I'm not as hot on that game as a lot of people are. Like, I think it's a very good game. But I do think that the controls in that game are phenomenal.
All right, we'll go with that for now.
Yeah.
Until somebody says, "Oh, what about this character?" And we're all like,
hold
"Yeah."
on. Last entry, Faith for Mirror's Edge.
Oh.
No. Okay. I was hoping to get a bigger response from that. Jeez.
I mean, I love
it's
those
fine.
games.
Oh.
The first
That's
game was
realistic.
really good. But there's always something about first-person platforming that will never feel as good as third-person, regardless of how well it's pulled off. Like Mirror's Edge, I think, is the best example of first-person platforming. Maybe I can't think of a better example.
That
of the
or
first...
Dying Light. I think Mirror's
Dying
Edge
Light
really
has
takes
good
it.
platforming, but it will never feel as good as a good third person or like side scrolling platformer.
Yeah, that's when someone did that mod of like the third person view of Mirror's Edge and you could see what Faith is doing. It kind of ruined it for me because she's like a monster.
Her legs
Have
are
you
like
seen that?
stretching in weird angles.
I haven't
or something.
seen that.
Oh yeah, it's this shambling mess of limbs. It's really funny, but at the same time, that just seeing it, I was like, oh, I wish I hadn't seen that. So proceed at your own peril.
Little known fact, they couldn't get that fixed. It was originally a third person game, and they're like, well, it's just going to be a first person.
Pull the camera all the way back.
That's so funny.
That'd be amazing if it was true. Okay, so Mark also wrote in. He says, I have a couple of rapid fire questions for you guys. You want to do a couple of rapid fire?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Watching a game's credits to the end of the game after beating it, even if you can skip it. I assume that's a question. Do you guys do that?
No.
No. Who does that? Like a maniac. Sometimes if it's like really short credits and you can speed it up, I'll do that. But anyway, limited lives in game?
No.
Question mark? No, I want all the lives.
Yeah.
Limited breath when swimming?
Yes, you have to.
Yes.
Yeah, it depends on the it depends on the design of the levels and everything. But yeah, I think in general that's a good one.
Unless there's a good reason for them not to, like if you're a robot or something.
Mhm.
Yeah. Watching ads for in-game currency / lives.
I mean, I don't like it, but I've done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done it, but I don't like it. Let's stop that.
Yeah. Get out of here.
Do you guys use walkthroughs or guides?
Rarely.
Yeah, rarely.
I'm playing like an older game that I've never played before. I'm just going back and like playing a game that like people are like, oh, this is like the greatest whatever of all time. You got to go play it on your Super NES Classic. And it's like, I'm so conditioned by modern gaming to like that it's like a waypoint for every single thing that I need to do that like I'm like I have no idea where the hell I'm supposed to go. I'll look it up on like the walkthrough, just to see like where I'm supposed to go and who I'm supposed to talk to and stuff like that.
Sure.
I hate having to hunt down items. If it's some like stupid thing like find this thing and I have to like just explore until I find a thing, I don't like that. If it's a puzzle solution, I try not to look those up because I want to figure that stuff out.
And also, if it's like something like where I won't be able to do it later, like if before I leave the area, I'll look and be like, all right, is there any secret thing here that like I need to acquire for like a task later on?
Yeah.
Okay. Remakes and remasters. I don't know how this is a question. Do you guys like them? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes
then the last
classics
one.
more accessible.
Yeah. Keep them coming. Do more.
Accessible.
More remakes. Double jump? Question mark.
Of course.
You
Love
just
it.
said triple jump.
Yeah. How about a quad jump?
Now you're just talking crazy.
Just play Risk of Rain.
This is flight.
Yeah. Let's just skip to the chase. We just don't want to fly, right?
Yeah.
Across the Atlantic Ocean to get to London for your Rocksteady join.
More
There you
up,
go.
less down.
Love it.
Great. Well, that brings us to the end of the emails, guys. If you have an email and you're listening and you're saying, hey, I'd love to ask them this question, guess what? You can.
There you go.
Podcast at GameInformer.com. Send it in. Send us we love games too. We haven't had a good game in a while, but you want to send us a rapid fire question? We'll take that too. Great. That link brings us to the end of our show and the last segment, which is a segment we like to call Get Wrecked. Jeff Cork is the man of the hour. You have
Oh my
anything you want to
gosh.
recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. I will recommend we're going old school. The new issue of Game Informer, we just revealed it. The cover story / game is Deathloop. And I think that whoever wrote the cover story there did a really nice job of
Wink,
kind
wink,
of
wink.
It was you, Ben. You wrote the
It was
cover story. You
me.
did a real
Yeah.
nice job on it. It's a
Thank
super
you.
fun read and it's interesting and made me more excited for that game. And also the cover itself is really cool.
Cover's very cool looking. I'm happy about that. I feel like I've had a string of, even though I'm proud of the stories I've written, a lot of my covers, like the cover on the story, has not been as like impressive as I would like.
There have been moments where
But
it's
this
just
one's
like,
cool.
You get the issue in your hands, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm proud of this one, but
Yeah.
Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I hinted at it 2 weeks ago on the GI show, but my video essay went out last week. It's about how base building saved No Man's Sky. If you have seen that though and you're looking for something else, definitely check out all of our exclusive Deathloop gameplay we've got going up on the YouTube channel. over the next couple of weeks. YouTube.com/Game Informer. And yeah, Blake Hester also did a very cool feature last week at this point on the creator of Yakuza and kind of his career and why Sega should have fired him in the 90s. It's a very cool profile, so go check that out.
Great. What about you, Brian?
So I'll side with Jeff about the Deathloop stuff. I actually sat in on that. We talked about this earlier in the show, but like I was not that interested in the game really. Like I thought it looked cool, but like yeah, until like we saw like all the footage and talked to the developers, I wasn't super interested in either. So Jeff, I agree with you. And speaking of agreeing with Jeff, my Get Wrecked is a preview that he wrote up on the website for a game called Aliens Fire Team. So I've always liked the Alien movies. And as he points out in the intro, like aside from Alien Isolation, we haven't had a great Alien game in a long time, if ever. And this sounds really cool. And Alien Isolation was very much like the hide and seek, like constant tension, survival horror approach that the franchise takes. But sometimes you just want to mow down a bunch of xenomorphs, and that's what this game sounds like. I've been, kind of, loosely monitoring this game since it was announced, I think like 3 or 4 years ago. And it sounds like it's turning out pretty cool. So go read that preview on GameInformer.com.
Great. Yeah, I wanted to highlight too, in the newest issue, which we talked about, featuring Deathloop, I also wrote a feature on Blazeball. It's called Inside Blazeball. And I talked to the team about just that interesting phenomenon. And if you know nothing about Blazeball, you should probably check this out, just because like Blazeball is this fascinating game where people, it's sort of like it happens on its own, but you're like betting on baseball games and how they turn out. But they're also super weird baseball games. It can rain blood, and there's a robotic pitching machine for a pitcher, and just super weird stuff happens. And if you know Blazeball by hand, you might also find this article interesting, because I talked to the dev team just about some of the stuff that happened in the studio, in the history of the studio, and how hard it was, and how this game was basically born out of the pandemic. And it was pretty cool. It's a good little story. I recommend checking it out. So
very interesting stuff.
Yeah. Interesting all around. Cool. Jeff Cork.
Yes, sir.
Any final words, final thoughts?
No. Like I said, I had a super great time working here, and I will miss you all terribly.
Should people follow you? I know you're not on Twitter much, but do you have any ways for people to follow you?
I mean, by all means, just GI Jeff at Twitter. Doesn't cost anything, and you'll get your money's worth.
Perfect. Great. All right. Well, thanks for being on the show, Jeff. Thanks for being on the show, everybody. And thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the GI Show. Please like and subscribe. Subscribe to our magazine. And whatever you do, come back next week, please. We depend on you. Until then, game on, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.